Sister Rico allowed them all to have their seats as she recited a small prayer. All of them sat with their hands on the table and closed their eyes. Rico had short blonde hair, and she also wore a pair of specs. She had a cream tone, and her eyes held something strange. Analia had always been the one to trust her guts, but she somehow felt that Sister Rico was not a good person. She instantly felt guilty for feeling that way. The mayor stood with his hands behind the back. He had a round, protruding belly and wore a tight brown suit complete with a white bow. He also wore a Homburg hat, and he casually stroked his chin from time to time. He eyed each student carefully as Analia sat with her hands together and peeked. His gaze came to a halt at Analia, and she jumped a bit. She quickly shut her eyes. The mayor smirked, and Analia had no way of knowing what was coming for her. The class was finally over as they all had completed their classroom formalities, and all of them headed for the evening tea with their new sister. Analia's footsteps came to a halt as Sister Rico called out to her in a high-pitched voice. "I believe you are Analia, right?" Poor Analia nodded hastily. Her brown locks came loose from her messy bun. And Rico continued, "I would like you to go in my office and meet the mayor. I've heard that Lady Nanaba was quite fond of you. Please go on. I will make sure that your portion of dinner is kept safe." Analia muttered an okay as she slowly started walking towards the office. She was not sure as to why the mayor had suddenly demanded her presence. Her skirt fluttered as she passed by the group of girls that were Raven's friends. She was sure that they had taken the chance to go and spread glue on her bed. They all laughed as she passed by them hurriedly. Oh, how they all enjoyed tormenting her in these silly ways. She walked by the playroom and came to a halt in front of the office. She turned around and checked herself in the glass pane of a window. She caressed out some of the wrinkles in her skirt and adjusted her hair a bit to look a little more presentable. She thought that her pale skin still made her look like an ugly fag. Analia was quite upset. She remembered she had cried when Raven had thrown away all the medications that Sister Nanaba brought for her with her hard-earned money. Analia had lied to the sister as she never wanted to make her upset and scold Raven. She shook her head a bit as she again turned around and placed her hand on the rusty doorknob and gave it a twist. The brass door instantly opened and her boots clicked. The office was quite tidy and well furnished as compared to the state that their other rooms were in. She stepped inside and saw the mayor sitting on a green-colored sofa in the right corner of the office. Pink drapes draped over an open window, and a desk and a chair were placed in the center of the room. Although it was not the first time that Analia had came to the office, but something about that man's presence was freaking her out. She averted her gaze to the big shelf of files and books that occupied almost the whole wall on the left side. The mayor was talking to his bodyguard, and as soon as he noticed Analia, he ordered the bodyguard to get out. The guard gave a deep bow He took long strides and went outside. The door made a click as the mayor himself stood up. His fat belly jiggled a bit, and Analia had to restrain herself from giggling. The mayor quickly tipped his hat and placed it on the wooden desk. His head was completely bald, except for a few hairs that lined the crown of his head. He spoke in a husky voice. My, oh my, Lady Nanaba had often used to talk about you. Now I understand why she was so fond of you. Analia looked towards him with surprise. Pardon my audacity, sir, but I don't understand what you are trying to imply over here. The mayor laughed and continued as he stroked his head a bit. Come here, Miss Analia. You see, I'm not the one to beat around the bush. I will get straight to the point once you take a seat beside me. Demo Reeves patted the place on the sofa right beside him, and Analia hesitated a bit. She pulled herself together. She needed to know what all of this was about, and she sat on the sofa and managed to maintain a suitable gap between them. The mayor continued with a lot more enthusiasm. Yes, so as I was saying, Lady Naneba often used to request me for funds, and I heartily helped her out. But you see, nothing in this world is a one-way thing. Analia gripped her blouse tightly as she muttered, What do you mean, sir? She had a feeling that something was not right. The mayor sat as he crossed his bulky legs. I couldn't just give Lady Nanaba all that money for nothing in return. So I asked her to sell one of her female cats to me, and I agreed to help her out in return whenever she wanted. And those words hit Analia like a bolt of lightning. She immediately stood up, but the mayor forced her down by pulling her hand, and she stuttered. That means that one of us. No. The mayor continued with a sly smile as his disgusting teeth again came into view. No, dear. Lady Nanaba was not that sort of a person. She refused this offer with much aggression. But life is truly cruel, dear. Shikhanchina is just a small town, and not many people are willing to donate even a single penny. So Lady Nanaba made a tough choice. She sold herself to me in order to save the trouble of selling one of her precious girls. He reached out to stroke Analia's hair, but she slapped away his hand with extreme disgust. What the hell did you do to her, you disgusting fiend? She ran over to the desk and stood there. Sister Nanaba had taught her all about the bad touch, and she hoped that she herself didn't have to do that with this old bastard. The mayor too stood up. Well, that is not the proper way to talk to someone, Miss Analia. I didn't do anything disgusting with her, like selling of her kidneys or something like that. All I used to do was rape her, and she didn't even used to fight against me. What could she have done when she was in such a dire need of money for you all. The mayor cackled like a hyena as Analia gripped the desk harder, keeping herself from slipping to the ground. But why? After all the promises that they had made that they will stand up for each other at all costs, then why did the sister hide this from her? Analia was an adult now. She could have worked for long hours in the field to raise their funds. But Sister Nanaba did this for their sake. She sold herself for their sake. She hid this dark secret behind that loving smile of hers, all for their sake. Analia sobbed as tears slowly started dripping down her pale cheeks. She hid her face in her hands and breathed harder. Her chest was aching. The mayor stopped laughing as he licked his lips. I'm sure you will also behave in the same manner, Miss Analia. You will be good to me, right? What? And Analia stood up in shock. Her knees buckled as her knuckles turned white from clenching too hard. No, this couldn't happen. The mayor laughed again as he unbuttoned his polo shirt a bit. He removed his white bow and threw it to her side and walked over to her. He leaned above her menacingly and said, Lady Nanaba is dead now, and certainly Lady Rico is also in need of funds to take care of you all. I promise that I will give her double the amount that I used to give Lady Nanaba if she let me choose the girl I wanted. And she happily agreed. So I chose you, Analia. Analia's anger spiked. That Sister Rico was really a vile person. She accepted this filthy proposal so easily. And Analia had never felt so angry in her life. Not even at the children, not even at her disease that made her feel so crippled. Her eyes started turning red, and she looked towards that disgusting man, Timo Reeves, that all the people respectfully called the mayor. Her train of thoughts was interrupted when she heard the door opening. Rico! That damned woman peeked inside as she threw something that the mayor easily caught. Analia was already blinded by her anger that she didn't even saw that what thing Rico had thrown. Analia lunged towards her with outstretched hands. She had hoped that her new sister would be as loving as Sister Nanaba, but she was wrong. Rico instantly noticed her approaching and closed the door, banged on the door as she shouted, Let me out! How could you have done this to me? Let me out right now. She heard Rico's muffled voice from the other side of the door. I pity you, poor child. Don't worry, you can scream all your pain out. I will be taking all the children to the background, as they all want to play before dinner, and no one except the bodyguard will be able to hear you both. Oh, and I told Raven and Florey about the deal between you and the mayor, as I thought I shouldn't keep it a secret from the eldest girls. Well, they said words such as, serve that sick jerk right, or I don't have any sympathy for her, she needs to prove herself useful at least once in a while. But I pity you, poor child. Thank you for doing this for us. And after that, Analia heard Rico walk back. She slumped against the door as she thought about her sick fate. Of course, no one was going to help her now. She tried to bang the door one last time and call out, but the mayor roughly grabbed her by the hair and threw her back towards the desk. The stem rose that she had tucked in her hair came loose, and the mayor unknowingly crushed it under his feet. He spoke harshly. Do you really think my guard will help you out? I have paid him enough to keep his mouth shut. Remember this thing, you insolent brat. Money can buy anything. Loyalty too. The desk dug in her stomach as she hastily tried to stand. She wanted to protest, but due to her disease, she already had trouble breathing properly. She needed to calm down. She opened her mouth to gasp for air